Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be queen and never have a heir to pass your throne to? I want you to think about that for a little bit, because today I will be going over the life of Queen Anne. She had suffered a very hard life, and many do not know this, so I would like to recognize it. We want to notice that many people today suffer from illnesses and die from them. If you can think of someone in your life that has suffered from a severe illness and later has died from it, how did that impact your life? Hello, my name is Susanna McDaniel, and I am here today to inform you on the life of Queen Anne. I want to take you all the way back during the time of Queen Anne's life. She lived between the ages of 1665 and 1714. Today, I will be addressing 3 key parts of her life. First, I'll be addressing the illnesses that Anne went through. I'll talk about Anne's pregnancies that she has had and how this has all impacted her reign as a queen. According to Britannica, Anne was born February 6, 1665 in St. James Palace in London, into the heart of a royal and political family. Queen Anne was raised as a Protestant. Out of 3 children that Anne's parents had, only her and her sister Mary lived past adulthood. She lived a French childhood, so that was very helpful knowing French from what she had suffered during her life. Ever since Anne was young, she suffered from minor illnesses. Since this, she only received a little education, but still got to reign during an important time in her nation's history. According to PMC, an article on the history of Queen Anne's health, it says that at the age of 4, she had to see an oculist doctor for a deflection of the eyes. That means that she had a constant watering of her eyes that would not stop. She had this all her life, which gave her problems with reading, especially by a candlelight. Now, since we're thinking back in 1600, 1700, this is during a time where the only light source was oil lamps, oil lanterns, and candle lights, so this was obviously a problem she had to face. Also, at a very young age, she had smallpox, but it was known to be very mild. Sometimes people mistaken her blushing to be smallpox, but it was known to be very mild. Growing up, she had other illnesses, but they couldn't be evaluated correctly. Later on, much of her life, she suffered from gout from the age of 33. This was the main thing she had suffered from during her lifespan. Gout is a common type of arthritis that causes severe pain and intense swelling and stiffness in the joints. Gout is known to be rare for women, so Anne's gout that she had was in her knees, her feet, her hands, and other joints all over her body. It was known that at the age of 35, she was not able to walk because of this. The way she got around was a wheelchair, so it was said that in the Kensington Palace, she had to have 2 floors made for a wheelchair so that she could get around properly. Another reason that she could not walk because she was so obese. Her being obese was because of all the illnesses and all the swelling and all of her just not being able to move, so she just always sat around. So when you sit around, you kind of just become fat. Even though she went through many different illnesses, she still chose to have children. Although now, today, ideally people would have a couple kids, maybe 2, 3, 4, but that is not what Queen Anne had chosen to do for herself. According to Whitehall Mall documentaries, a video on YouTube said, from 1684 and 1700, Queen Anne had about 18 pregnancies. It said that this means that she had 18 pregnancies in a span of 16 years. Out of all her children, 8 of them were miscarriages, and 5 of them were stillbirth. And of the stillbirth, some of them were twins. Although the only one who survived was William, Duke of Gloucester, who was born July 24th, 1689 at Hampton Court Palace. He lived to the age of 11, but later died on July 30th, 1700 from acute bacterial pharyngitis. It was said that Queen Anne's first and last pregnancy was known to be stillbirths, and it was known that one of her stillbirths laid in her dead for at least a month. This did not stop Queen Anne from having more pregnancies. After this, she had 4 more children, at which died for many different reasons. On June 2nd, 1685, Mary was born at Whitehall Palace, but then died 2 years later of smallpox at Windsor Castle. She was then styled Lady Mary. On May 12th, 1686, Anne Sophia was born at Windsor Castle, though died tragically 6 days before her sister Mary on February 2nd, 1687. The third to last child was born on October 14th, 1690 at St. James Palace and was named Mary. Since she was so premature, she only lived for a short 2 hours. The last child that Queen Anne had was on April 17th, 1692, named George, but only lived long enough to be baptized. Now, you may be thinking, why did Queen Anne have so many miscarriages and stillbirths? Well, the answer is because she suffered from antiphospholipid syndrome, which is an immune disorder that turns the body against itself. Also, another main reason was because she suffered so much from gout. Even though we want to know the real reason behind why she lost so many children and how some of the people say that it's mostly antiphospholipid syndrome, but it's just impossible to find the real reason because she suffered from so many different illnesses that they are not 100% sure why she had so many miscarriages and stillbirths. So, whatever the reason may be, we got to realize that the loss of her children did play a toll on Queen Anne, but it did not stop her from becoming queen. Queen Anne became Queen of England, Scotland, and Ireland between March 8, 1702 and May 1st, 1707. To this day, Queen Anne is known for making the kingdoms England and Scotland united as a single sovereign state known as Great Britain under the Acts of Union. Then she reigned for Ireland and Great Britain for the rest of her life. During this time, she was married to Prince George, though was a lazy alcoholic until his death in 1708, which made her widowed. It was known that no married queen reigned before Anne. Since she was the last monarch of the Stuart of her second cousin George I of the House of Hanover was succeeded. Queen Anne died August 1st, 1714 at 7:30 a.m. by a stroke at Kensington Palace. She was then buried in the same vault as her husband and children. Since she was so obese, it was said that she was buried in a square-like coffin. After all this, I hope you are more informed on the life that Queen Anne had. From this, you should have more understanding on the illnesses that she had faced, the pregnancies she had, and how this all impacted her being queen. To this day, we can remember that this woman, who suffered from so many different illnesses, connected England and Scotland as one, known as Great Britain.